So we got Ryan Chesterfield here, who's founder over at Auto FC. And if you were tuned into our live audio last week, he joined us as well to talk a little bit about robotics in the warehouse space and how to navigate that landscape and how to prep for this week for Modex. So now we're here at Modex. So Ryan, tell us a little bit. How's it going?
It's going. I mean, there's a lot here.
It's big, right?
A lot of different solutions. You see new solutions. Like I was by Okado's booth and I saw they had an articulating arm and some of the retrieval bots. I hadn't seen that before. Kind of interesting application. So you see the players that have been here for a while coming out with new toys, and you see new players here. So it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And I think this is easily the biggest show for Modex.
Oh yeah.
People and footprint and like booth-wise that I've been to.
Yeah. Because you've been in the world for a while, right? So I mean, you've been coming to the shows for quite some time. So I mean, I think this is the biggest that Modex has been. Like this hall that we're in here, I don't think they've ever had this, right? Yeah. So I'm curious, as you're walking around a little bit this morning, because I think you got in late yesterday, right? So what's kind of standing out to you right away?
Some of the inventory solutions, like Gather AI with drones. Inventory is maybe it is a well advertised like issue or pain point for the warehouse, but it's not something that like you see a lot of the robotics players, they're attacking fulfillment, product movement. And so I think that's sort of an interesting play. I think it doesn't necessarily require sort of the same nuances. The hardware doesn't do as much. So you're seeing different flavors. You've got drones flying around, looking at pallets, looking at locations, whatnot. Yeah. And then I saw a company called Dexery, I think is how you say it.
Yes. Yeah, we had them on a little earlier this morning. Yeah.
And I had actually seen, I think Parth had shared it with me.
Okay.
And an interesting concept, right? I believe, I don't know them that well, I believe they're doing a similar thing to Gather AI, where they're like looking at inventory.
Yeah.
But they're just driving around with an AMR, with a telescope on it, basically, that can read the location. So you could do it with a drone flying around. You could do it with an AMR. I mean, something tells me you could walk around with a pole and an iPad and maybe do this.
Maybe, But would you want to do that?
No, I don't think you would. But it would be better than like a clipboard and a team of 5 people. If all you had to do is walk the aisles, like that could be different. So I think that's something that's standing out to me at the show is some of the inventory solutions. And I think it's a growing topic, at least in the customers I'm talking to.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we're seeing like more entrances into that arena too as well. Like even like we talked to Nokia the other day. Like Nokia has a drone inventory solution now as well, recently on the market. And we talked to Dexery this morning, and very interesting. Like I think they have probably the most different form factor from some of the other companies that are doing stuff out there. But yeah, definitely an interesting focus to see that, and I think important too, because inventory, I think inventory is kind of like the backbone of the operation, right? I mean, especially if you're going to go to more robotics or automation, if your inventory is not right, things are in the wrong location, you're going to have problems, right?
That's it right there. I think that was last week, Parth and I were talking about data being kind of one of the pillars of like what to think about coming into this, and I see that as sort of the entrance point of the data. It allows somebody to capture data that they didn't have before, or maybe data that took them a lot longer to get or wasn't as quality for whatever reason as a human eye versus scanning a barcode. And just like you said, if you go to a location to make a pick and your product isn't there, you have to do a recourse, and that is time consuming, and especially if the labor force, you've got temps and they're not trained that well, maybe that takes them a little bit longer. So I think it'll be interesting to see, like, from a return on investment standpoint. I think these solutions will be easier to implement than, say, like a big ASRS, and you might see, some aggressive returns there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a crazy number, right? So Dexery, right, said this morning that they can capture the data from 10,000 locations in an hour.
Wow.
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's it's wild like what they can do now with this stuff, and I think it is such an impactful thing for your operation. But as we look around here, I mean, we see, obviously you're focused on automation and robotics in your career, and what you're doing now with Auto FC. But I think one thing too that's kind of interesting, and we were kind of discussing this a little bit last night at dinner and stuff. I mean, it's interesting to see that the space, right, has a lot of like startup companies, right, doing robotics, doing interesting things for sure. But when you look at these types of solutions and you start to think about, and we've seen some disruption certainly in the industry, right, with some companies that have been, cutting staff, or have not made it, right, have folded in a sense, that they were here, a year or two ago and seemed like, they might be rising stars in a sense, in some sense. As I'm as an operator, right, and I'm going out and I'm looking at these different type of solutions, how do I kind of go about, assessing not only the solution itself, but maybe the company too, to make sure that like, hey, I'm going to invest in this solution and I'm still going to have support, 4 or 5 years down the road, and the company's still going to be here to be able to do that type of thing.
Yeah, that's a dicey one. I mean, you go around here, everyone's got a great demo.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of the sneaky part. Is the demo isn't necessarily real life, and they make the demos to look as close to real life as they can, but it can be difficult to see through the nuances of the solutions. And one thing I would look at is how long have they been coming to the show? If they've been here for a year or two, that's certainly an indicator that they're fresh.
Yeah.
And I'm sure everyone's going to ask, how many robots or how many systems or how many customers do you have? Like that's a good question. But last night at dinner, we were talking about this. I've been in this industry for a while, so I see lots of my friends on LinkedIn, and lots of my friends are moving around to all these companies. But if you were to look at the VP of sales and how long they've been there, I think if you've got a VP of sales that's been established, that means the product is probably more secure.
Interesting.
Where the VPs jumping around, VPs are going to leave if they don't think that the product can do what they thought it could do. So I've noticed a big shift. Lots of shifts as there's layoffs with folks like Locust, Covariant, and others. But try to figure out how long some of these people have been there. The C-suite, and certainly try to go see it. I mean, that's like that's the main thing. But I've been at these vendors where I've been a part of a new technology and you don't have that customer to see it, or your customer doesn't let anybody in, and like that's almost always the case. So that's kind of a tough one. But it's tough to navigate. You really have to have your wits about you and have an awareness of how the technology actually works. I think that's what's really going to upskill you against some of the vendors.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting tip, to kind of look at that tenure and how long people have been there, and is there a lot of shifting going on? Because I think it's interesting. Obviously a lot of these technologies are impressive here. Like as you said, we see the demos and everything like that. But I'm curious in that regard. I mean, how would you, like, say there's somebody that has a solution that's maybe here for the first time, or maybe they're here for the second time. I mean, if you're an operator, how would you advise them to maybe approach that? I mean, like maybe they see that solution and they're like, oh yes, this is the solution that we've been looking for our problem. I mean, would you caution them, or would you tell them that, like, if that's going to fit your problem, like, you should pursue it?
Yeah, I think having a diverse portfolio, you could say, or a couple solutions in mind. I think last week one of the things I said was, coming into the show, have your goals straight. So, do we have a fulfillment issue to fix? Do we need to increase capacity? Can we just not hire people? And so focusing on what the core problem we're trying to solve, and then bringing a couple players in. They're all, I shouldn't say they all, the players are going to solve the problem a different way, right? Like, I think last week we talked about Locust versus a Geek Plus. They're both fulfillment aids or fulfillment solution, but they operate in a much different application. So bring in a couple players, vet them out, ask if you can go see a customer site, make sure they see your site, the more time you spend with them, the better they're going to know you.
Yeah.
If they're not spending time with you, then they don't know you that well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point to make there. I mean, I think, there are certainly so many solutions out here, and I mean, you can talk to and engage more than one, and certainly, try and figure out. I think, like you said, like who's gonna, build that relationship with you, and make sure that you really are gonna solve your problem and accomplish that. Which I think, it's the certainly don't want to invest in automation or something like that and then have it still 9-10 months down the road. It's not where you want it to be or not where you expect it to be at all, right?
And it's happening a lot.
Yes.
It's happening almost most of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, do you hear anyone say, I love this thing that I got? Like, usually there's some nuances and that kind of annoy people, but it's a tough game out there, right? These operators they're running a warehouse. They don't know mechanical systems or software systems or ones and zeros. That's not their job.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting dichotomy with these kind of like hyper advanced vendors working with these warehouse operators. You've just got two horses of a different color and they have to dance, and that's where kind of the knowledge of the the customer business and the technology, you gotta mesh those somehow.
Yeah.
Whether it's your own team at the vendor or you hire help.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you hire Auto FC, right?
Or you hire Auto FC. That's basically what I'm out here to do, is improve communication, messaging in the marketplace, and all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I definitely appreciate you stopping by here and jumping in the booth and giving us some insights there. Some of the tough insights, to hear a little bit, but definitely need to be out there for the operators and look out for them. And it's great that you're also trying to create that better communication flow as well through Auto FC. So if people are interested to learn more about Auto FC or get in touch, what's the best way?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Ryan Chesterfield, and autofc.com. That's auto-fc.com.
All right, Ryan. Appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks for having me.
Always good to see you, man. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.